Elon Musk, a name that sparks inspiration, ambition, and controversy. From revolutionizing space travel to reshaping the automotive industry, his vision has changed the world. But today, he's at the center of a battle not in the skies, but in the courtroom. A federal judge has made a decision, one that could alter the fate of a critical U.S. government agency, USAID, and the consequences? They reach far beyond just one man, but to millions across the globe. Before we continue this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss an inspiring, thought-provoking story like this one. Now let's dive back in. Elon Musk, a name that resonates with innovation, disruption, and ambition. He has built rockets that reach the stars, electric cars that redefine transportation, and artificial intelligence systems that push the boundaries of human potential. His vision has inspired millions, but today that very vision has placed him at the center of a legal battle, one that could change the course of a vital government agency, USAID. For decades, USAID has been a cornerstone of American global outreach, providing humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and economic assistance to nations in need. It has helped rebuild war-torn countries, provided food to starving communities, and played a crucial role in strengthening international diplomacy. But in recent months, reports have surfaced suggesting that Musk has been working behind the scenes to dismantle key aspects of the agency, raising concerns among government officials, international allies, and even his own supporters. And now a federal judge has stepped in with a decisive ruling, one that has sent shockwaves through Washington and Silicon Valley alike. This ruling doesn't just affect Elon Musk. It could shape the future of U.S. foreign aid, government oversight, and the very balance of power between private enterprise and public institutions. As the courtroom battle unfolds, one pressing question remains. Why is Musk, a tech mogul and space entrepreneur, so deeply invested in USAID's future? And more importantly, what does this ruling mean for the millions who rely on the agency's work? The controversy surrounding Elon Musk's involvement with USAID didn't emerge overnight. It began quietly behind closed doors as whispers within government circles grew into loud concerns. Over the past year, reports surfaced that Musk, through his vast network of companies and private influence, was taking steps to disrupt the agency's operations. Some speculated that his actions were driven by a desire to overhaul government inefficiencies, while others believed it was an attempt to shift power away from traditional institutions and into the hands of private enterprises. But how exactly did Musk get involved with USAID? Sources suggest that it all started when his companies, particularly SpaceX and Starlink, began working closely with global aid organizations. Starlink, with its ability to provide high-speed internet in remote and disaster-stricken areas, quickly became an essential tool for relief efforts. Governments and humanitarian groups alike praised the technology, relying on it for emergency communication, medical assistance, and infrastructure rebuilding. But as Musk's influence in these operations grew, so did his frustrations with bureaucratic red tape. According to insiders, he saw USAID as slow, inefficient, and bound by outdated regulations that limited its impact. And in typical Musk fashion, he sought to do something about it, on his own terms. Reports claim that Musk began lobbying for changes within USAID, advocating for a more tech-driven, decentralized approach to global aid. Some of his proposed reforms included streamlining the allocation of resources through AI-powered logistics, reducing reliance on traditional government funding, and instead using private partnerships to drive innovation. While these ideas excited some, they alarmed others. Critics feared that handing over too much control to private entities could compromise the agency's mission, prioritizing corporate interests over humanitarian needs. The debate soon escalated, drawing attention from lawmakers, watchdog organizations, and eventually the federal courts. And that's when the legal battles began. The government launched an investigation into Musk's actions, accusing him of interfering with USAID's core functions. Documents leaked to the press suggested that there were internal discussions within Musk's inner circle about reducing USAID's role in certain regions and replacing it with private initiatives funded by SpaceX and Tesla-backed foundations. The revelation sparked outrage among officials who saw it as an attempt to privatize foreign aid, shifting control away from elected leaders and into the hands of one man. The pressure mounted until finally a federal judge was forced to intervene, issuing an order that sent a clear message. Elon Musk must stop any efforts that could lead to the dismantling of USAID. But this ruling is just the beginning. The decision raises deeper questions about the growing influence of billionaires in global governance and whether traditional government institutions can withstand the power of modern tech giants. The judge's ruling sent shockwaves through the political and business worlds alike. For some, it was a necessary step to protect the integrity of a vital government agency. For others, it was an overreach, a sign that the government was unwilling to adapt to the modern era of technological innovation. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was clear. Elon Musk was now at the center of one of the most consequential legal battles of his career. As news of the court's decision spread, reactions poured in from all corners. Supporters of Musk argued that he was only trying to fix a broken system, one that had long been plagued by inefficiency and mismanagement. They pointed to examples where USAID had failed to deliver aid on time, misallocated resources, or allowed corruption to seep into its programs. To them, Musk's vision wasn't about destruction. It was about reinvention, about modernizing humanitarian efforts in a way that only someone with his reach and expertise could achieve. But on the other side of the debate, critics saw the situation very differently. Lawmakers and government officials argued that Musk was overstepping his bounds, interfering in matters that should be handled by elected leaders and experts in international aid. They feared that his involvement could set a dangerous precedent, one where billionaires with enough power and influence could dictate the future of government agencies, bypassing democratic processes entirely. Some even compared the situation to past instances where private companies had attempted to take control of public institutions, warning that history had shown how such moves often led to disastrous consequences. Inside the courtroom, Musk's legal team pushed back against the ruling, claiming that his actions had been misinterpreted. They argued that he wasn't trying to dismantle USAID, but rather to introduce reforms that would make it more effective. They pointed to Starlink's success in crisis zones, highlighting how it had provided internet access where traditional infrastructure had failed. They insisted that Musk's involvement was not about control, but about efficiency, about ensuring that aid reached those who needed it the most. Despite these arguments, the judge remained firm. The ruling stated that Musk must immediately cease any actions that could undermine USAID's mission, whether directly or indirectly. This included any efforts to shift funding, reorganize operations, or introduce privatized alternatives that could weaken the agency's role. The court made it clear that while innovation was welcome, it could not come at the expense of government oversight and accountability. But this legal battle was far from over. Almost immediately after the ruling, speculation began to swirl. Would Musk comply, or would he fight back? If history had shown anything, it was that Elon Musk was not one to back down easily. With billions of dollars at his disposal, an army of lawyers, and a global platform that allowed him to shape public opinion in an instant, it was only a matter of time before the next chapter of this fight unfolded. In the wake of the court ruling, the world turned its attention to Elon Musk's next move. Would he comply with the order, or would he push back against what he saw as government overreach? For those who had followed his career, the answer seemed obvious. Musk was not one to accept defeat without a fight. And sure enough, within days of the judge's decision, signs of resistance began to emerge. Reports surfaced that Musk's legal team was preparing an appeal, arguing that the ruling was not only unjust, but also a violation of his rights as a private citizen and entrepreneur. They contended that his involvement with USAID had never been about dismantling the agency, but about pushing it toward modernization. According to his lawyers, Musk had no intention of undermining humanitarian aid efforts, but instead wanted to introduce technological advancements that could make relief work more effective, transparent, and less dependent on slow-moving government bureaucracy. But behind the legal maneuvers, another battle was brewing, one that was being fought not in the courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. Musk took to social media, where his influence was undeniable. In a series of posts, he criticized the government's handling of USAID, claiming that taxpayer money was being wasted and that bureaucratic inefficiencies were preventing aid from reaching the people who needed it most. He shared statistics, graphs, and firsthand accounts from aid workers who supported his claims, painting a picture of an agency that, in his view, was long overdue for reform. The response was immediate. Musk's supporters rallied behind him, echoing his concerns and calling for greater transparency in how government agencies manage foreign aid. Hashtags began trending, petitions circulated, and debates raged across news channels and online forums. His critics, however, were equally vocal, accusing him of using his platform to manipulate the narrative and distract from the real issue at hand, whether or not he had overstepped his authority by interfering with a federal agency. The political world took notice, and soon the controversy reached Capitol Hill. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle weighed in, some defending Musk as a visionary entrepreneur trying to bring much-needed change, while others warned that his growing influence over public institutions was a serious threat to democracy. Hearings were proposed, investigations were called for, and suddenly what had started as a legal dispute had turned into a full-blown political crisis. Through it all, Musk remained defiant. He made it clear that he would not be backing down easily and that he would continue fighting for what he believed was the future of global aid. The question now was, how far was he willing to go? And just as importantly, how would the government respond? Would they attempt to tighten their grip on USAID to prevent further interference? Or would Musk's influence force them to reconsider how humanitarian aid was managed in the modern world? As tensions escalated, one thing became clear. This battle was far from over, and the outcome had the potential to reshape not just USAID, but the balance of power between private enterprise and public governance itself. As the legal and political storm intensified, Elon Musk found himself at a crossroads. The court had ordered him to cease any actions that could disrupt USAID's operations, but in his mind, the fight was just beginning. To him, this wasn't just about a single agency. It was about the future of innovation, efficiency, and the role of private enterprise in shaping global policies. And so, rather than retreating, Musk doubled down. Behind the scenes, his companies began exploring alternative strategies. Insiders revealed that SpaceX and Tesla-backed foundations were actively seeking new ways to provide humanitarian aid, outside the boundaries of USAID. If the government wouldn't allow Musk to reform the agency, he would create his own solutions. Starlink satellites, already deployed in disaster zones and war-torn areas, continued expanding their reach, offering internet access to regions where USAID had struggled to establish reliable communication networks. Tesla's energy division ramped up efforts to supply solar power to refugee camps, bypassing traditional aid distribution methods. The message was clear. If the government wouldn't let Musk work within the system, he would build a new one altogether. But this only fueled the controversy. Lawmakers and watchdog organizations accused Musk of deliberately undermining USAID, arguing that his growing influence in global aid efforts was a direct challenge to democratic governance. They warned that allowing a single billionaire to dictate foreign aid policy could set a dangerous precedent, one where unelected individuals held more power over humanitarian efforts than elected governments. At the same time, public opinion remained deeply divided. Some hailed Musk as a visionary who was exposing the inefficiencies of government-run programs. They pointed to the rapid success of his privately funded aid efforts, contrasting them with the bureaucratic delays that often plagued USAID's operations. Others, however, saw his actions as reckless and self-serving, warning that humanitarian work should not be left in the hands of corporations that ultimately prioritize profit over people. The Biden administration faced mounting pressure to act. Calls for stronger regulations on private sector involvement in government affairs grew louder, and rumors swirled about new policies that could limit the role of tech billionaires in public institutions. Some even suggested that Musk companies could face legal restrictions on their ability to participate in government-funded aid programs, a move that would set the stage for an even larger confrontation. Despite the mounting opposition, Musk showed no signs of backing down. In a rare interview, he defended his actions, stating, "I'm not trying to destroy USAID, I'm trying to save lives. If the government isn't willing to adapt, then we will find a way to do it ourselves. His words only deepened the divide, with supporters cheering his defiance and critics warning that he was dangerously close to overstepping his role as a private entrepreneur. And so the battle raged on. The courtroom fight was just one piece of a much larger struggle, a struggle over who should control the future of humanitarian aid, how global crises should be managed, and whether innovation should be led by governments or the private sector. As Musk continued to push forward and the government scrambled to respond, one thing was certain: the world was watching, and the outcome of this conflict would shape the future of international aid for years to come. As the weeks passed, the standoff between Elon Musk and the U.S. government only grew more intense. The court order may have legally restricted Musk from interfering with USAID, but it did little to stop the larger movement he had already set in motion. Around the world, tech entrepreneurs, political analysts, and humanitarian organizations weighed in on the implications of this battle. Was this a necessary fight for innovation or a dangerous power struggle that could undermine government authority? Within USAID itself, internal divisions began to surface. Some officials, particularly those frustrated with the slow pace of bureaucratic processes, sympathized with Musk's push for efficiency and reform. Others, however, saw his actions as an existential threat to the agency's credibility. The leadership of USAID issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to government-led humanitarian efforts. As the weeks passed, the standoff between Elon Musk and the U.S. government only grew more intense. The court order may have legally restricted Musk from interfering with USAID, but it did little to stop the larger movement he had already set in motion. Around the world, tech entrepreneurs, political analysts, and humanitarian organizations weighed in on the implications of this battle. Was this a necessary fight for innovation or a dangerous power struggle that could undermine government authority? Within USAID itself, internal divisions began to surface. Some officials, particularly those frustrated with the slow pace of bureaucratic processes, sympathized with Musk's push for efficiency and reform. Others, however, saw his actions as an existential threat to the agency's credibility. The leadership of USAID issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to government-led humanitarian efforts. But behind the scenes, there was growing concern over whether the agency could maintain its influence in a rapidly changing world. The Biden administration, meanwhile, faced increasing pressure to take decisive action. With Musk's legal appeal moving forward and his companies continuing to expand their independent aid initiatives, policymakers debated their next steps. Some advocated for stricter regulations on private sector involvement in foreign aid, while others warned that pushing too hard against Musk could spark a public backlash. After all, his supporters weren't just tech enthusiasts. They included business leaders, foreign diplomats, and even some members of Congress who believed that USAID's structure was in dire need of modernization. Musk, for his part, remained defiant. Despite the legal battles, his social media campaign continued to shape public perception. He posted testimonials from aid workers who praised Starlink's impact in disaster zones, shared data on inefficiencies within USAID, and hinted at new projects that could revolutionize the way humanitarian aid was delivered. He framed the issue not as a billionaire versus the government, but as a battle between outdated bureaucracy and cutting-edge technology. And for many, that narrative was compelling. But then an unexpected twist shook the entire debate. Reports emerged that several major international organizations, including the United Nations and the Red Cross, were in talks with Musk's team about potential collaborations. These discussions, while still unofficial, signaled that the private sector's role in humanitarian aid was expanding whether governments liked it or not. If organizations of this scale were willing to work with Musk's companies, what did that mean for the future of USAID and other government-run aid programs? As tensions reached their peak, a critical question loomed over everything. Was this fight truly about USAID, or was it about something much bigger? Was this a turning point in the global balance of power, one where traditional government institutions would have to adapt to the rise of tech-driven solutions, or risk becoming obsolete? And if Musk succeeded in reshaping the humanitarian aid landscape, what other areas of government oversight might he challenge next? One thing was certain: this was no longer just a legal battle. It was a defining moment in history, one that would determine how power, technology, and governance would intersect in the years to come. Whether Musk emerged victorious or the government reasserted its authority, the world would never look at foreign aid or the influence of billionaires the same way again.